Hello and welcome to today's presentation on financial goals through personal alignment, budgeting, and credit. I'm Lizanne Lightfoot. I'm the VP of Marketing here at GoVA Foundation, and I'm so honored to be joined today by Ruben Rojas from BB Americas Bank in Florida. Thank you to all of our Florida viewers who are signing in. We are so excited to have you here this evening, Ruben. Look forward to getting your perspective and your advice on setting our financial goals for the year. So please go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and some of your experiences with BB Americas.
Sure. Number one, it's a pleasure to be here. And my name is Ruben Rojas. I'm originally from Miami, Florida. I work for BB Americas Bank, and I work as a service liaison, part of the community reinvestment. And we do financial literacy with community. We also do a lot of services, including affordable housing and food security. But this is our pride and joy to be able to do financial literacy with the community that we all have to sort of face and sort of understand in different phases of our life. I always tell people our finances are constantly changing, and so is life. So I'm happy to sort of like look at that together.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And we want to thank BB Americas for their support. GoVA Foundation is able to partner with banks throughout the country to support our military and veteran community so that we're able to offer free financial education tools. BB Americas is one of those partners supporting military families throughout Florida. So we're really honored to hear their perspective tonight. And all of you here should be already members of The Edge, which is GoVA's financial education platform. You'll be hearing tonight a little bit of a deep dive into how to use some of those tools on The Edge, how to access everything that's already being provided to you through BB America's support. So I want to let Ruben get ahead and get started, but first I will tell all of our viewers that there's a chat option available throughout today's event. There is a chat bubble up at the top of your screen, and you can click on that anytime to leave a message to Ruben, to our other viewers, share some perspective about where you're coming from and the financial goals that you're setting for the year. We'd love to hear from you, and then Ruben has saved time at the end to address any questions that are appearing in the chat. So I'll start by sharing some of our financial goals for this year. My husband has recently retired from the military, and so there's a lot of financial changes that come with that. New paperwork and new jobs and new household income. So I'm really looking forward to Ruben's perspective today to align some of those goals with our family's priorities and kind of getting some insight on what's going to be most important for us for the year. So those who are watching, feel free to drop in the chat some of your financial goals for the year and what you're hoping to get out of this presentation. But Ruben, you can go ahead and share your screen if you would like.
Okay, so today's workshop is about financial goals through personal alignment. We're going to talk about budgeting and credit. So again, my name is Ruben Rojas. I'm the CRA service liaison with BB Americas Bank. So the things we're going to talk about today is how to set financial goals that align with your personal priorities, proven budgeting techniques to manage your money effectively, strategies to build and maintain strong credit, and also the resources available through Edge and the Banzai platform to support your financial journey. So first, how to set financial goals that align with your personal priorities. This is absolutely, to me, the most important part of finance. I always tell everyone that I speak with, everyone that I interact with in workshops and different classes, that the most important part of finance is not the numbers necessarily, it's what you care about, what's important to you. Everyone's finances is different, not because their paychecks may look different or their lives may look different, but what they care about is different. We're all individuals. So according to how we lead our lives, what we value, it's going to really shape how we look at our money.
For sure. And I just wanted to share how excited I was for this section because I know that on The Edge, we have an assessment for your money personality. And that has been a really popular section on the site. We see a lot of people interacting there and diving into those resources because I think it's just such a unique way to look at finances. We've all heard different tips and articles and budgeting advice, but at the core, I think everyone comes to adulthood with different views of money. Some of those habits are good, some of them are bad, some of them serve us well, and others not so much. And really understanding your own money personality and how that's impacting your decisions gets to the root of so many financial things. So whether it's, differences that you're having with your spouse on where we should be spending our money, whether it's setting goals like we're talking about today. So I'm really eager to hear your perspective on this. And then I'd love to hear if any of our viewers have used that money personality assessment and learned a little bit about their personality from the edge.
Absolutely. And if they've used the assessment, it would be great to maybe hear some comments in the chat. And also, as I start to go through the values, feel free to also type in maybe what your top 3 values are as I go through them. So we're seeing here on the screen, it says, what matters to you? Security, freedom, creativity, family, health, adventure, generosity, learning, recognition, independence, community, spirituality, success, fun, balance, respect, honesty, contribution, travel, and comfort. And again, we can maybe care about all of these things, and they may be values that are not even listed here, but the reality is that we do get a certain amount of money, and we want to channel whatever money that we have to what we care about the most. It doesn't mean that we can't do the other things, but we like to think of it in terms of what is our top 3 that we care about absolutely the most. And that's going to change our perspective of how we look at money, because once, for example, let's say one of your priorities is to travel, to grow, to see different perspectives. And when something comes up and you maybe spending money on clothes or going to the movies, when you put that in the forefront and you think, okay, do I want to spend on travel or in clothes? You prioritize the travel, right? And you start channeling more and more and more. Personally, for me, security is very important. Freedom and community. Security provides just sort of that peace of mind to know that if anything happens, I'll be okay. Also, the freedom to have different options, to explore different things, and travel's the same. Community, in the sense that if to me it's very meaningful and important to have a sense of community, a sense of belonging, and be able to have my money and my finances aligned toward that, whether it's contributing to the church or contributing to a club or to marathons that support different things. That sense of community is very important to me. So feel free to jump in the chat if you want to share anything that matters to you. Do you want to share your top 3, Lisan?
I think this is a great way to approach looking at budgeting and kind of aligning your priorities. So definitely family for me. I do have a large family and they are a big focus in my life. And then I saw learning, and that really clicked because my husband and I both are, strong believers in that kind of lifelong learning. And for our children and for ourselves, we're always prioritizing extra activities and classes and things like that. So I think that's important. And then I think I would say travel, not as much in this current stage of my life as a mom to young children, but it has definitely been a priority in the past. And I think it would cycle around to being a priority again and something that we want to save for in the future. So, and then I do see in the comments we have sharing family, freedom, and balance. So I think I love that. Very cool that of the opportunities that you have here, everyone's going to come up with a different combination of their priorities. And that just really reinforces kind of that concept of money personality. So knowing that everyone's going to be different, even, 2 spouses in the same household are having different list of 3 priorities from this list, how would you recommend that people use that knowledge then to approach their money choices?
So I always recommend first off, because it's not only identifying that, but it's also keeping it on the forefront. I get the simple recommendation of just getting a post-it note, putting it on the refrigerator, putting it in your office where you can see it every single day, and also breaking what that means to you, breaking it down. For example, if it's freedom, if it's community, why is that so important to you? And what is it going to look like for breaking down our paychecks and dedicating money to it and being more specific? But I do love the idea of sort of physically seeing it all the time, because you're constantly reminded, because again, life is complicated. It throws things at us all the time, and it goes constantly shifting. But your values may not, in the
Right.
sense that you really want to concentrate this year on those top three. And again, these can go shifting every year and every few years, where, like you said, travel was more important. You want it to be more important then. But I really, really encourage on breaking that down, which I'm going to do in the next slide. So sort of just to have a better idea, for example, family, why? Because they're my support system and I want to be able to spend quality time with them and provide for their well-being. Once you break it down, it adds a lot of meaning. Travel, because seeing different cultures and new places broadens my perspective and creates lasting memories. I always say that experiences are so much more important than the material things that you can collect, right? Those memories and experiences stay with you forever. And value three, security, because I want to feel stable and prepared for the future, knowing that I can handle unexpected events and not constantly worry about money. There is no price for peace of mind. That is one of the best investments that we can ever make. And I think looking at these different values, looking at it with your spouse, sitting down, listing them, and sort of looking at these and say, hey, how can we prioritize? And let's say all three are different for the both of you. Maybe
Right.
putting those top six in the fridge and seeing how you can channel all of the energy and all of the money that you're making toward those great things. And then at the end of the year, maybe reflecting and looking back and saying, hey, look, this is all we did as a family. This is all we did as travel, and this is all we did to secure ourselves. And you get that sense of reward at the end of the year, knowing that you did
Sure.
everything that you did, and all your priorities toward what you cared about.
Yeah, I love that approach. I think it's really healthy to look at the income or the budget that you have not as a restrictive tool. I think a lot of people see a budget as like, okay, what am I not allowed to have? My budget is telling me I can't buy the lattes and things like that. But really putting it in this more positive frame where you're saying, hey, this is the income that we have available and we want to channel it to the things that are most important and valuable to us. How can we do that as a family? Because you just used the example of, hey, maybe one person has a top three that doesn't align at all with their spouse's top three. Well, then no wonder they're constantly arguing about the credit card bill or where the
Right.
money's being spent, because what you're seeing as a value is not being reflected in the way the household income and the budgets are being handled. So I think this is a really positive way to frame those conversations that will hopefully be helpful to people. But I'd love to hear from our listeners. If you are managing a household with a spouse or a significant other, do you see alignment in those priorities, or do you think that disconnect might be reflecting on some of your financial struggles?
It's such a great question, because it's so important not only to align our values with our finances, but align it with our spouse and making sure we're seeing eye to eye. Because as much as we love them, we're all different. We're all independent, and we all have our worries and the way we see money. So aligning the values first that we know that are important to us, but also aligning that with our spouse can really go a long way in making a big difference. And I love that you put that in that positive light, that again, we don't have to look at it as what we can't do, but more empowering what we can do. And at the end of the day, budgeting is about control. It's about empowerment. So the more that you're conscious of your finances, the more in control you're going to feel, the more at peace you're going to feel, and the more you can do with your family and with your life.
Yeah. For sure. And I think you're seeing a full range of feedback in the comments. We have Raina is saying that as far as those priorities go, there's definitely some disconnect in some areas. And then we had the opposite response. Looks like Stuckle is the name. Pretty connected across the board. They said, my spouse doesn't like to be involved in the day-to-day management. I just need to update her periodically on how we're doing related to our shared
There
goals.
you go.
That's one no-nonsense way to handle it. And then in the middle, you have Jose saying we have both alignment in some and disconnect in other areas. So definitely have a full spectrum here. And I think you can speak to all of those experiences.
Absolutely. And I think the important part is sort of like putting these things on the table, being non-judgmental, and sort of leaving room open for conversation of just what you have in common and how to sort of reconcile the differences. And so I have an example here of an alignment. And also, even when you align the same value, for example, there's still potential improvements in that alignment. For example, let's say the value is family. And it says here, I currently spend money taking my family out to dinner once a month. This allows us to connect and spend quality time together. So again, once we look at the value, you want to see what does it give you? In this sense, it's connection and quality time together. It's so important, right? But the potential improvement, instead of going out to eat at a restaurant every month or every week, it says there are budget-friendly options even. You can go on a picnic, you can do game nights. There's so many ways to even optimize that even. So let's say you did it once a month. If you optimize that value, you can actually have dinner 4 times a month at home or have a picnic. So there's different, well, again, each value that you identify, you can really optimize it and make the best of it. So again, we have the questions here on the bottom. Says, what is the connection between budgeting and your values? And will understanding your values help you make better money decisions? And I think we already know the answers to these questions.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. And then I know coming up, you wanted to talk about what this means for our goals for the year. I think it's early in January. A lot of us are kind of mapping out our year and thinking ahead to, excuse me, what do we want to accomplish this year? What are those fun things that we want to do, as a family or with our spouse? And so how do we get from understanding what those priorities are to then starting to make these financial goals and financial decisions?
Absolutely. So once we identify what our values are, what we care about the most, now we can start thinking from a broader perspective of how we spend money, what did the last year look like, and also then creating goals. So it says here, last year's bird eye view. First, how did you spend your money? Be very honest with yourself. Again, it's you and your wife. Again, when it comes to money, there should be a non-judgmental approach because we're constantly improving. It doesn't matter what age we are. And it says, what would you change? What would you keep the same? So analyze trends and habits. So yeah, give a good honest look at yourself. Say, yeah, I spent let's say $10 on lattes a week, and is that still very important to me? What would you keep the same, and what would you change? And I think identifying these things can really help us set goals. So second is to check your net worth. Did you get a promotion? Was there a loss of a job? Is there extra work, a side gig that you're doing? Are you investing? Check all of the changes and project for the new year, because every year is going to look differently. Whether you're making more money, whether you're making less money, we absolutely want to see how we spent last year, what are our trends, and how do we adapt them to this year coming up. Yeah. Also, assets minus debts, and prioritize debts and plan accordingly. We're going to talk about more about budgeting, and then planning and how to eliminate debt. But we definitely want to keep that in mind while analyzing last year and then the year to come. And next is to create goals. Once we look at sort of our trends, what our habits are, and we check how much money we're making for the next year, potentially, is to create your goals. So we would hopefully want to create maybe 3 goals. And first, by dedicating funds to appropriate debts, saving, education, education investments, sort of a goal that has that theme that I think is always important when it comes to budgeting. Number two, how you're going to trim spending and optimize experiences while spending less. This is exactly what we were talking about, right? So keeping that value oriented goal in mind and how to optimize that. And goal three, finding new ways to make more money through promotions and side jobs. It's always so important to keep growing, whether you're at the same job, whether there's side gigs. I know a lot of people that they just started being, like, for example, a boat captain. It sounds crazy, but they enjoy it even more than their job, and they're making money. So sometimes there's other ways to make money. Sometimes you have the goal of a promotion this year. So keeping that as a goal is so important for your finances, because you want to keep that money coming in.
Yeah, for sure. And I think as you were speaking, I was realizing what a valuable approach this is for military families, especially after a PCS move, when there is so much turmoil. You might be in a new cost of living area. Your spouse might have changed a job or lost a job or be looking for work. Education situations might be different. We just go through so many changes every time that we move, especially after transitioning out of the military into civilian, whether it's retirement or post-military work. And even after a deployment, I found that we had so much inconsistency and trouble maintaining a household budget during military life, because it was like every year it was a new story. We thought that, well, my husband's job was consistent. If he hadn't been promoted or changed rank, that, everything should be pretty much the same. But it wasn't. We would move and the BH rate would change, or the cost of living in the new area would be different. My opportunities would be different for supplementing income. And so I think this was probably the step that we were missing, that we kept trying to recreate a household budget and it just wasn't matching our life experiences. So I like how you kind of zoomed out and took this step to be realistic about where have we been, what did last year look like for us, or if you've just moved or done a PCS or a deployment, what did that major life experience look like for us, and what money did we spend during that time? But then looking forward, how are we aligning this with our goals? And I think that can be a way to help military families and veteran families to sort of recollect and get back on track after these major life upheavals.
Absolutely. Especially when your life is taking so many twists and turns or major changes, we want our finances to keep up with us, right? Our finances need to adapt accordingly, and sort of looking at this from the bird's eye view, and then more specifically later, will really, really help us optimize our finances and the money that we make. So also important to consider long and short term goals. So long-term goals, when we're thinking about long-term goals financially, we can think about saving money and the interest that it can accrue, paying down debt, emergency funds, because you never know what can happen, and also saving with a purpose. And when I mean saving with a purpose, it may be for a house, it may be for a car, it may be for something very specific, and that will absolutely motivate us to really stick to these long-term goals. And these long-term goals are things that we can sit down and plan, especially when it comes to paying down debt, for example. And this is something we're going to talk about later on, but we definitely want to set some goals aside just for the long term, because in the long term, it's really going to add up, especially interest in a savings account, for example, or emergency funds. We definitely want to make sure that we plan for these long-term goals. And next, the short-term goals, saving money daily, changing your habits. It's so difficult to change habits. So let's say you identified something that you care about, but you have to let some things go that you cared about less. But changing habits is not easy. So sort of like keeping ourselves in check and making sure that we're focused on what we care about, and also adapting and like sort of integrating those goals into our day-to-day lives is so important. Because sometimes if we're just looking at the long term, we forget about today and tomorrow, but we got to make sure that we're sort of staying on track. And then also month-to-month changes. If changes could happen every year, every 6 months, month-to-month month changes can happen as well. So keeping short-term goals every month can really help us not only have a sense of reward, but also adapt accordingly to what happened the previous month to the next month, because grocery prices change, gas prices change, and that's something we're also going to talk about. But the short-term goals, I like reading a very long book but with short chapters. It's very satisfying because once you read the first chapter, like I went through the first chapter, but when you have a book that has a very long chapter, you never finish it. You're never going to finish the chapter. So the short-term goals gives a lot of reward. It makes the real difference when it comes to changing daily habits, and then the long-term helps us really plan to get the most out of the entire year.
Sure. And I think it is so important when we are setting goals to keep those smaller bite-sized pieces in mind. I remember when we were setting goals through deployments, I was the spouse who stayed home during my Marine Corps husband's overseas deployments. And so, of course, like many spouses, I would set personal goals for myself of what I wanted to accomplish in the 6 months to 9 months that he was away. And sometimes they worked out and sometimes they didn't. But you'd always hear these unrealistic goals of people that wanted to like learn 3 more languages and, lose 50 pounds and get a college
Right.
degree and, and like this is while they're having a baby or something. And you're looking
Right.
at them like those are great goals, but maybe not all at the same time, or maybe not all happening next week. So how can you kind of break them down? And if it's not going to be possible to do that massive giant thing during the deployment, could you set a more realistic short-term goal of like, well, each week I want to spend 10 minutes doing this, or I want to work out 1 more time than I'm doing now, or I want to, change to eat 1 meal that I've cooked at home rather than eating out. And those small daily habits are going to be so much more impactful than setting a giant goal. And I think people make the
Absolutely.
same mistake when it comes to finances. We know that military families struggle with a lot of debt and with a lack of emergency funds. Unfortunately, I think around 25% of our military families have less than $500 in a savings account. And we all know we should have more, that, if the car breaks or if something goes wrong, like we're going to need those funds. But when we hear the advice that, oh, you should have 3 months of your salary in a savings account, and you're thinking, how am I going to get to that? There's no way. So people don't start. And if you never start with that small goal, you're never going to get to the giant goal that you really want to be at.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And just as to sort of to recap our values and goals, I think in simple terms, it would be great to, again, like I said, maybe as homework, list those top 3 goals, what they mean to you, and list 3 long-term goals and 3 short-term goals. And really pay attention to the short-term goals. Like you said, it's harder to feel the reward from the longer-term goals. But once we have the short-term goals and keeping them realistic, again, keeping them very realistic, we know how much money we're making. We know what's in what is in our control and what is not. But again, when we keep them realistic, it's so rewarding when we see that there's a difference. And then again, we're channeling all of our energy, all of our finances to what we care about the most.
Yeah, and before you do go on, I wanted to read Raina's comment because this is really relevant when we're talking about setting those goals and building up that emergency fund that I just referred to. She mentioned some of us tap into that emergency fund with PCSing alone. And I think that's important to realize that military families often do get caught in this cycle. I know my family certainly did, where we were moving every 2 to 3 years. And if you know that you're going to be spending money out of pocket, several $1,000s is the average every PCS move, it might take a few years to build up that fund, and then you move and it's wiped out. And then you only have 2 or 3 years to build it up again before you go through that same cycle. And it feels like you're not getting anywhere. So I don't know if you wanted to address that right now, but I just wanted to kind of refer to that cyclical nature of military families trying to handle emergency fund and trying to pay down debt and make progress, but then PCSing just wiping that all away and deleting our progress.
Oh yeah. That's definitely so important to address. I'm gonna get to that eventually, but I think it's very important to keep in mind that there might be setbacks, there might be unexpected situations. However, we can always remind ourselves, what if I didn't have that available? What type of disaster would it have been? There is a worst case scenario, and you think you're in maybe the hardest situation last year or this year, but when you sort of take a look at it from a bird's eye view, you say, okay, at least I had that, and at least I have the possibility to start it up again. And again, just making sure that we number one, we give ourselves grace, especially for the families that are in service of this country. They're sacrificing so much. We really deserve a lot of grace and a chance to start over. Everyone deserves a chance to start over. And again, there's a lot of things that are out of our control, but we want to definitely take advantage of what's in our control. So moving on, so let's look at some budgeting techniques. Let's make this a little bit more concrete of how we can start looking at our money. So proven budgeting techniques to manage your money effectively. Let me go down. So in simple terms, everyone probably knows this, but I like to sort of simplify and then deep dive. Number one, identify income. We just spoke about that, sort of how much money you're making. Are you going to get a promotion? Do you lose your job? How much money are we making? Identify expenses, compare income to expenses, and make adjustments. We're going to be doing this for the rest of our lives. And again, this is a very healthy process, but it's natural because, again, every month looks different, as we mentioned. Every quarter, every 6 months, and every year will look differently. And we want to make sure that our finances are adapting to our very real and complex lives. So I just sort of simplify this. So we just keep it in the back burner as like identifying income, identify expenses, and then you compare them. Right? It's as simple as that. And then we sort of break it down into the specific, like being more specific with what we're spending. So I got this from The Edge, which everyone has access to, but this is such a great tool for it's a budget calculator and sort of putting your monthly income. You can put all of sort of your goals, all of your expenses, your spouse's income, and it sort of breaks all of that down for you. So if for those who are a little sort of hesitant with math, maybe you're better at reading in school and sort of like find the numbers annoying. Thankfully, like we're in 2026, there's so many tools that we can use now of just plugging in the numbers, and then sort of the app does the work for us. So making the best of this goes a long way.
Yeah, definitely want to encourage everyone to log into the Edge and check out this budgeting tool. I like it for several reasons. I do like the nice, convenient sliders that make it easy to make adjustments. I find it a lot less intimidating than a spreadsheet. Maybe that's just me. But I also like how it sets up just that framework that Ruben was just mentioning. Like you're putting in your income first, obviously, but then the next thing you're looking at is your goals. What are you saving for? It's that idea of, pay yourself first, invest in those priorities that we talked about at the beginning that you and your spouse thought were important. And then you're not seeing it on this screen, but there's a whole bunch of additional areas where there's different categories for your expenses. You can add, you can put more details in, and it saves your progress as you go. So if it gets overwhelming and you're just looking at your credit card statement and you've only put in a couple of things, you can just exit and it'll save everything. And the next time you sit back and get back to it, it'll have saved all of those numbers. So you don't have to like do it all at once in one sitting, which I think is very reassuring for some people to know.
Absolutely. And also what I love about this is that it sort of explains what your situation is. It says, what does it mean? So you have all these numbers, all these goals that you plugged in, and it even sort of analyzes it for you. It says, congrats, your monthly net is currently positive, and it sort of explains a little bit of that too, so you can reflect. And this makes it so much easier to just constantly plug in the changes that are happening, and then you can have real time analysis, and then you have extra resources to sort of like boost your confidence when you're making those adjustments. So yeah, the Edge is really incredible. I was just introduced to it. We have a different platform that we work with, but there's so many great tools to work with. So definitely make the best of this one.
For sure. And I'll send out links in our follow-up. So anyone who's watching, whether you're watching live or after the fact, we'll make sure that you get access to that.
All right, great. So this is another simple but very effective rule, and I think I love sort of the simple rules because they stay in your mind forever. And then everything you look at, you could apply it accordingly. So maybe if you're not looking at the Edge in the moment, you're not sitting down at the desk, or you're not looking at your phone, you sort of have it stuck in your mind, sort of 50, 30, 20, 50, 30, 20. So what does the 50, 30, 20 rule mean? It means split your income into needs, wants, and savings. So your needs should be 50%, your wants 30%, and your savings 20%. And again, this can vary from family to family, from individual to individual. This can, it doesn't necessarily have to be a precise 50, 30, 20. However, keeping this in mind when we get our paycheck helps us so much to sort of stay in line with our needs, stay in line with our wants, and stay in line with our savings. So just a general question. So you have to think about what your needs. What are your needs? Of course, shelter, food. Believe it or not, today and age, like having internet is very important. Utilities, so many things, gasoline, transportation. Making sure that your needs are 50%. And sometimes our needs surpass 50%. And that's something that we have to analyze and look at just to sort of balance out our finances. Then wants. What are your wants? Right? It's natural to, again, want to go out with your family, maybe go on a trip to Disney to take a break. You're going to need clothes for the year. You're going to need to have Christmas gifts to buy. There's a natural way that, of course, we're not just going to just live shelter and food. We're going to have natural wants every single week, every single month, and every single year. So listing that, just making sure that we align just 30% of our paycheck to our wants, and then savings 20%. And again, keeping in mind, what do you want to save for? Giving purpose to that saving. If it's emergency funds, it gives us security. If it's for a house, having that safe place to call home, it's gonna really change the game. But again, sort of keeping that simple 50, 30, 20 rule every time we look at our paycheck can really help us stay on track.
For sure.
So next, the best budget is one that you keep. So it's, again, like we were talking about New Year's resolutions. Sometimes we say, we want to save, I don't know, $10,000, and we want to do this, or like she said, I want to lose 50 pounds. Well, let's keep things realistic. And again, keeping ourselves on track, making sure that we keep it is the most important. Not necessarily having to impress ourselves or our spouse or anyone. The most important is that you make realistic goals and you keep them. Again, so it says here, what is one small actionable item step that you can take within the next 48 hours to create a better budget? This is really a game changer. We can talk about a lot of different strategies, but if we don't apply them, so I think it's such a great thing to think about. It's like, what can we do in the next 48 hours? Do we want to apply the 50, 30, 20? Do we want to set at least one goal and then act accordingly and see how we feel with that change? See what you can do in the next 48 hours and how you feel about that change. I think that's really going to encourage us for different actions for the rest of the year.
Yeah, that's a great challenge. So thank you for bringing that up. I did type that in the chat to see if anyone wants to share if they have ideas of takeaways from what they've heard so far, or some ideas they've been considering for the year. But I love that approach of, let's not just keep this hypothetical, but let's really take an action away from this time and this instruction today. And I can share a small one from the 50, 30, 20 rule. We actually use that policy with our kids when we're giving them their allowance.
Really?
Yep, my kids are middle school and high school age now, and they're old enough to start understanding some of these budgeting concepts. So we give them their allowance as cash for the chores that they've done around the house and, odd jobs and things. And then they have 3 different envelopes that they can put it in: their needs, their wants, and their savings. And, they're working with really small quantities right now, but I think just instilling that idea that when you get a paycheck from your first job, it's not all immediately going into like going out with your friends or buying candy. Hopefully you're thinking about ways to break it down into needs, wants, and long-term savings. So
I love that. I love that. And they're learning early, which is great.
hopefully, yeah, we'll see what sticks. And then I see you have a comment from Raina. She said, I will for sure change my wants and needs. I love that. So excellent. You got a good takeaway already. She said she's trying to adjust to do 30% savings and 20% wants. So
Great.
that's a neat approach.
Change
too.
that rule. That's right. I like that.
Just breaking the rules already.
I love it. I love it.
But I think that's so smart. You said that the best budget is the one you're going to keep. And if she's realizing that that's going to align better with her priorities and what she needs to do right now, then that's a great way to make that change. You haven't changed the overall volume at all, but by realigning those statistics to your priority, or the breakdown to your priorities, then you're going to make a noticeable difference. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. Also, there's another question here. It says, who can you talk to if you need help or run into challenges creating or sticking to your budget? So we have sometimes different friends sort of that you go to for different things, for relationship advice, maybe for car advice to fix a car or for plumbing. Different people have different expertise. You go to your spouse pretty much for everything. But again, who can you talk to that you feel comfortable with, you can trust, they know you very well, that will help you stick to your goals. They won't make you feel bad about it, but they'll be a good friend with sort of that tough love, like, hey, remember you told me? How's that going? How can I help you? How can I support you? Having someone to hold you accountable to your own goals really goes a long way, because number one, not only do they remind you, but also when you stick to your goals, normally they're very proud of you. I've gotten a lot of comments from my friends when I achieve my goals. I share my goals with them. Yeah. Sometimes we're nervous, like I don't want to tell anyone my goal, and then I don't make it, But once we have a very good friend, it could be our spouse, it could be family members that hold us accountable. But once we reach the goal, to have that support. And for people to say, I'm so proud of you. You said that in the beginning of the year and you did it. That really encourages us to do more even.
That's an awesome approach.
So next, we have just some general advice about just tracking your spending, planning free activities, automate savings. Oh, that's such a big one. Set daily spending limit. Pack your lunch and try a no spend day. Even though when you step outside, you're already spending money, right?
I hear that so much with having kids. We used to joke when we were in California. We were stationed in Southern California near San Diego, where everything was just crazy expensive. And we joked that trying to take our kids outside to breathe fresh air cost $100. So.
Absolutely. And even when you stay indoors, you can have that Amazon app, which is very dangerous. But there's different strategies and ways. For example, the automate savings. The automate savings refers to sort of taking a chunk. Let's say you wanted that 30% instead of 20% for savings. You can automate that for that to go directly into your account. And let's say, well, we're also going to talk about this later, automate your credit card payments. There's so much technology to empower us to make things a lot easier and to make sure that we stick to your own goals, and it helps a ton.
Sure. And I think Stuckel says in the chat that they've been encouraged by your messaging tonight that they want to create an actual budget. They said right now we track our expenses and we monitor to make sure we're not overdoing it in any specific area, but we could make better progress on our goals by actually documenting our budget and holding ourselves accountable. So I think a lot of us feel like we're doing something with budgeting, but if it's not actually written down, if you haven't had these conversations, if you don't have someone that you're talking to kind of remind you of those goals and hold you accountable, then it's not a real budget, is it? If you're just sort of aware that you're spending money.
Absolutely. And sort of if we want to look at it almost like a game, let's say in a game you're going through different levels, you're going through different stages, and at the end normally there's a reward, you save the princess, something like that. When you set your goals and you realize that you achieve your goals and let's say you save that 30%, I think you should definitely give yourself space to reward yourself. Go to that really nice restaurant that you've been wanting to go. Do a 12-person family dinner, and remind yourself and even talk about it at the same dinner and say, I'm doing this because I'm sticking to my budgeting and I want to be able to reward me, my family, and be able to share this with everyone. To be able to say that out loud and say that consciously, I think goes a long way. So I think it's very, very important to when we reach that. Obviously, we're gonna have more money because we saved our money. We did things as we planned. Definitely rewarding yourself goes a long way, and it really encourages not only yourself to continue to stay on track, but it also encourages others to support that, because sometimes you have, let's say, friends saying, hey, you get let's say a group chat, let's go to Las Vegas together. It's like, I did not have that plans. But when your friends are aligned, your family is aligned with your own your budgeting, they sort of understand that and they can support that too.
That's such a good point. Yeah, I think it is definitely hard to prevent those, impulsive moments that come up. But when you talked about rewarding yourself, that just resonated because it's the exact strategy I used during deployments. I mentioned earlier about taking those big deployment goals and breaking them down into weekly or monthly smaller chunks. And I had monthly and weekly rewards built in for myself as well that really kept me going and kept me motivated through a very long and difficult time period. So whether it's something small, like I'm going to go out and, buy that pastry or get a coffee or something today that, something that I wouldn't usually do, or whether it's meeting up with a friend and having a big event to celebrate a milestone. I think those are such important moments that keep us on track and keep us going. So definitely don't overlook building those rewards into your budget.
Absolutely. So we're at 50 minutes now. We have about 10 minutes. I'm going to try to skip through the other slides just to maybe give an overview of I really wanted to pack in so much information. There's just so much to learn that I think I got to sort of, like, I went over myself in that sense that I just tried to put so much information. So I'm just going to quickly sort of go through the rest of the slides just so we keep it in the back burner. If you ever have any other questions, I'm sure there's going to be follow-up email and also more sessions coming up. But I'm just going to click through. If you guys have any questions about any of the slides, feel free to comment in the chat, and then we can discuss that for the next 10 minutes.
Sounds good.
So fixed expenses versus flexible expenses. So fixed expenses are the expenses that don't change monthly. I love those because we can depend that they don't change. And flexible expenses are just the ones that are constantly changing, just keeping track of these. So Lisan had mentioned the budgeting worksheet that's also available on Edge. Some people prefer the app, but maybe if you're old school style, you just like to go like category by category and write things out. Like I know my mom absolutely still loves to write things out, and she has beautiful handwriting. I think sort of the art of writing and handwriting, we've sort of lost it a bit, but she still loves to put things down and feels concrete and feels physical, or if you just want to type it on your computer as well. But I think the budgeting worksheet can go a long way to sort of give a good view of all of our income and all of our expenses, and then make goals accordingly. Sort of financial levers to consider: reducing expenses and increasing income, which is something I touched upon, as sort of like maybe increasing income with the side gig, with your promotions, keeping that in line or in mind with your goals. just some examples of reducing expenses, meal planning, generic plans, things that you probably don't already know. You already know. Negotiate bills is a big one. Sometimes people just accept the bills as they come. I have learned the older I get, I ask all the questions. So just there's different ways to reduce expenses. Increasing income, again, so many opportunities to teach lessons or skills. I know in this group, I'm sure everyone has a lot of skills and so much to teach, and we can charge for that because there's a lot of people willing to learn and to pay for it. But again, there's so many opportunities to make extra income on the side. For strategies to build and maintain strong credit. So many of you know how the credit score and report works. I'm not going to explain that to you. It's sort of just like the breakdown of the importance of payment history, amounts owed, length of credit history, new credit, and credit mix. And always keeping in mind that the two most important are payment history and credit utilization. And here's just some top 10 pointers for credit. Paying all the bills on time, like I mentioned, automatic payments, keep credit card balances low, check your credit report regularly. You could also check it for errors. Believe it or not, there's errors, so we want to keep on track on that. Don't close old credit accounts because that would be part of our payment history, right? Limit new credit applications, diversify your credit, become an authorized user on another credit account. If your credit's not so great, but you're looking to grow and you have a trusted family member or friend that can really help us, getting a secure card. There's different cards with different opportunities to grow your credit. You can also report your rent and utility payments to the credit bureau. A lot of people don't realize this because you think it's just your credit card. And then let's say that's a little bit rocky right now, but no, like let's say you always pay your rent on time, your utility, that can count toward your credit. That's something to take into consideration. And also, like all of our financial goals and dealing with credit, we need to be patient and consistent. And that's something that kept coming up during this talk. Just keeping on track, keeping that consistency is the most important. And finally, I think I'm going to finish with this one so we can have some room for questions. But I really love these best payment and debt release strategies, snowball method, the avalanche method, negotiate with creditors, debt management plan, and debt consolidation. Many of you probably already know that you can negotiate with creditors, and there's different debt management plans or debt consolidation. However, the snowball method is simply paying the smaller amounts first and then dealing with the bigger amounts later, because then you can make bigger payments on those. And the avalanche method is paying the bigger amounts first and then leaving the smaller ones less. But we definitely want to consider for both of these methods how much interest are on the cards. So if you have a card with higher interest, we want to pay those down first. And we can consider that as part of the avalanche method, not only the amount, but also the interest amount. Because, interest can get out of hand. So we want to make sure that we pay that first. When it comes to the snowball method, and let's say we have a few credit cards and we have one, let's say for $2,000, it's really rewarding to sort of like pay that one off. And then we only have 2 left, and then we could dedicate more money to those. So I'll stop there. If you guys have any comments and questions, we have about 4 minutes left. But yeah, I like a lot more. Let me see.
You do. I apologize that we weren't able to get to all of it, but I think we are lucky that we are going to have Ruben on likely again throughout the year. So if there's a lot of questions and interest about debt payment strategies and maintaining solid credit and some of these other topics that he had just started to touch on, then we can absolutely return to them in a future presentation. So as we're wrapping up, I'm seeing a resounding yes, please already. So I think you've done a great job. You've really presented some good strategies here to get us thinking. I liked your tip of, what choice can we make in the next 48 hours to make a small improvement on our budget that's going to align with our goals. I loved how you encouraged us in the beginning to really think about our priorities and make sure that our current spending is actually aligning with the priorities that we are saying we have in our lives. So if anyone does have additional questions for Ruben, you can go ahead and ask them in the chat, and we can also connect with him afterwards. So you can email GoVA and we'll make sure that he gets all of your questions and feedback. Again, I'm Lizanne Lightfoot. I'm the VP of Marketing here at GoVA, and I will be your point of contact for all of our EDGE members. So I'm very grateful that you've been able to join us tonight, and I hope that you will continue to dive into the resources that are here that are being provided by BB Americas on your behalf. So any closing comments or thoughts, Ruben?
No, it's just been an honor to share this platform with everyone that signed on, also whoever listens to this recording. I look forward to presenting more, and I truly hope that these sort of short rules and different tools really come to your advantage, because we want to make 2026 one of our best years, and we want to maximize all of the money that we have toward the people that we love and toward what we care about. So thank you so much.
For sure. Thanks again. It's been a pleasure.
It's a pleasure.